What we're going to be doing in this video is setting up our overlap events to pretty much be our way of inflicting damage with our knife. So for example, open up the knife here. I can go to add component, just search for a box. We have a box collision. Just scale it kind of however you would need it. Such as something like that. Whenever you swing it, if this component overlaps with something like a zombie, apply damage to said zombie. But what we're going to be doing instead is we're going to be going from the client to the server, so that way the client, it's obvious. Like if there's some desync, we know that all we can really do is just check if the distance from the location that the zombie was hit, like where the overlap event, occurred, is within X distance of the player's, knife location that's on the server. We know it's a valid hit. Just kind of that sort of thing. Delete that box component. Add one. So in our knife.h, let me close down our character here. Up here, we have our uBox component. Include, so it's components, box component.h. Include that in the .cpp. And in our knife.h, we're going to make this blueprint editable, but editing only the defaults. Class uBox component. Let's call this one collision component. So, sure it is, yep, box component. Now we'll do collision component equals create default subobject uBox component box component. Typoed that. And then once we have that, we can do collision component, set up attachment. What we're going to do is set it up to the knife mesh. Probably actually size it. Add the box component again and just give it a rough size. Matches. Ten by 10 by 10. Does that change that? No, it does not. Oops. The width. Height. Let's move it up. Go out a little farther. It's wrong one. Where it's pretty close with the knife. Like so. I'll go a little farther. There. So we have 1.2. Just do 13 and 2.7. I'm just going to round it of our location. So what we're going to do is set that info to match. So collision component, set box extent, it's the end node. That should be this very starting point. So we're going to do f vector, create a new one. It's going to be 0.2, 13.0, 2.7 to match up with our box extent right here. Then we'll set the location, collision component, set relative location, vector. Again, we're creating a new one. We're going to do 0, 0 to correspond with our location right here. It should match up just like that. That's going to be our default. Now let's create a overlap event. We have on component begin overlap. takes in some parameters that I'm not entirely sure of, but it's based off a primitive component. So let's see if IntelliSense will help us with that. So collision component on component begin overlap dot or add dot unique. Yeah, I'll do add. Just see. I thought it was add dynamic function. So what I want to do is I'm going to use that amazing thing called Google. See what the parameters are. It's got the parameters right here. So it's actor, primitive component, and a bunch more stuff. So I'm just going to copy this, paste it in, and I'll kind of show you everything that's in it. So can't remember if this has to be a U function or not, but we're going to do void on overlap begin. Parameters are a actor, or a primitive component, and 32, Boolean, and the hit result. Create the implementation. This is going to be referring to this, and a knife on overlap begin. Wow. Also going to delete this box component here, save it, and close. Ready? So maybe it's just add now. Entirely sure. This changed in 4.25. For the outset, add has the right setup. Just go back to add and see what happens. So let's see, F script delegate. F script delegate. Delegate. We're going to do function. Has the objects of this that are on overlap begin. It's an F name. So F name overlap begin. Just going to make sure that's right, which it is. Then what we're going to do is we're going to make this a U function. So our on overlap begin is now a U function. Should have it bound. Just have to, I guess, test and see if it actually fires. So I'm going to print out a log. Print out success. Compile. And just see what happens. Alrighty. Come on. There we go. Open up our knife. There we have our new box component. Let's make sure standard overlap events is selected. Yeah. So let's just see what happens. Lap again success. So all of them are down here. See what happens when I stand still. Start with a clear log. Get one. Getting one when a knife, so now I should get two when I hit the zombie, which I do. So we know that it is detecting the zombie. So that's good. Now what we can do is let's print out the name here. So if other actor, print out other actor, get name, just so we know that, we're hitting it. And we're just gonna, let's see how long, 11 minutes. Probably just gonna double check that it is in fact hitting what we want it to hit. And we will probably end the video there and go into doing just a lot of adjustments on the next one. Really get this kind of just working how we would want. Ready? So it seems like it's overlapping with itself. And is not hitting. No, we're seeming to have some issues. Let's see. Go to custom here. Let's try to remember what our bullet trace was. What I'm going to do is I'm going to head over to our zombie here. The zombie class. Go to our, let's see, the mesh is set to ignore, I think. Okay, so the mesh ignores everything other than camera and walking, essentially. But the mesh itself blocks the camera. Okay, so we want it to be on the bullet trace. So we want this knife to use a certain collision channel that allows the bullet trace, essentially. So if we come back and look at our weapons here, I guess weapon base might have it. So be on the line trace part, form line trace. So e-collision channel 12. That's probably what we're going to end up doing, is kind of making it follow a certain line trace channel, such as that of our projectile. So that way, other stuff will block it, of course, but not ourselves. So if we look at our player, there's no collision. Our capsule does have collision. but we want it to ignore bullet traces. Go to custom and ignore bullet trace. So that's something that we will want to leave like that. That way other players shoot, it just kind of goes right through us. And when we knife is not going to make it's not going to generate the overlap event when it hits like our capsule, for example. So that's one thing we're going to be working on in the next video. So as usual, I will see you then.